Hello, friends. Welcome back to Value Vintage Cards. I'm going to share a LCS pickup, a very small pickup, and then one other card that came in the mail that I think is super cool. So I'm going to share that one last. And I'm also going to share a little bit about hopefully an upcoming LCS pickup. So, talking to the owner, he said that he's hoping to get some of the bigger cards from the collection. I had shared before, I picked up a bunch of like strip cards and you know pre-war items that were all from the LCS, which were out of character for him. He's definitely pretty good with vintage 50s, 60s, 70s, but pre-war is outside his scope of norm. So he had some T207s, lots of W strip cards, um, really neat stuff. But he actually said the guy was not looking to move some of the bigger ones. So I did pick up a Walter Johnson, a Rogers Hornsby. He had, um, several Hall of Famers, but they weren't necessarily the Ruths and the Cobbs. And apparently the seller has Ruths and Cobbs. So he's going to be hopefully scoring the rest of those. They're most likely graded, they'll most likely be fairly comparable pricing, but um, I I wanted to share that because, of course, I will be kept in the loop. He'll probably text me pictures and things like that. But um, I do want to kind of be a good steward, a good friend within the community. I know my buddy Joe, that's not on YouTube, will be interested. Possibly Jason, Joe, Redneck Collector. If there's any Dodgers, I'll reach out to Mark. I'll probably hit up Mangini, see if he's got any interest. Dan, Sammy, if I see any, Mathewsons or something. So I think it's just interesting how much you get to know what people collect. I've had a lot of, I'll say new friends, folks, some that aren't on YouTube, reach out and say, I picked up this cool Sisler, I've got a Brown, I've got a neat Musial, or I've got something from this set that I thought you might find interesting. So I love this. I think it's the coolest thing of the community is that we all kind of watch out for each other. There was a really cool Mordecai Brown piece that was at auction, and I didn't even see where it went. I know it was going to go, it was thousands when I saw it, and it was going to be big thousands. I mean, three to five, maybe more. I don't even know. Three would have been a good deal, but a lot of money, something you don't just flip over and decide to spend. Um, but this piece was, a week out from closing, and it was cool because I started seeing messages come in. So uh, I think I got four different text messages from people in the community saying, "Did you see this? Did you see this?" And every single time, I was like, it's almost like I wish I could do it. It wasn't the timing for it. It's a big card to invest in. So sometimes the reality of what you can do is there. So had to hold off. But I just think it's so cool that you have literally four people from different uh, like circles essentially, and we're all in the same circle, but four people individually that I've spoken with at different times, all reaching out like, "Hey, did you see that? Did you see that?" So it's really cool, and I'll do the same thing. So if I see anything Detroit, I'll reach out, Eric, and see if he's interested. So there's so many different angles, and the way we all collect is so unique and different that you see pieces and you're like, okay, that's something that that person would want. That's something that that collector would enjoy. That's something that that friend would, at least want to see, if not consider picking up. So I'll do my best, but just a lot of, community love, I guess there. So let's dive in. Let's take a look and see what I picked up, and I'll explain the last piece, which I think is super cool. But so these nine, I went to the LCS. Like I said, I do it really to maintain relationship. So when he does get those, Cobbs and Ruths and Walter Johnsons and stuff in, that he'll reach out to me. So um, first one I picked up is the most recent of what I got. I guess this is the fringe. Some will consider this vintage, some won't, but it's 1980. I think I'll include 80 in my not worth noting opinion. It's the last year before you had multiple productions, but I think these are neat. These Burger Kings. So looks like a regular tops, but it's a Burger King issue. So I think that's really neat. Bruce Sutter. In addition to it being just a cool Bruce Sutter, um, no beard, cool Cubs uniform. And cool as a stretch, but very 80s Cubs uniform. Um, Next up, I couldn't remember if I had this, honestly. And it was in the like value box, which is kind of where I live my life. So I was like $5. I know he'll cut me a deal, so it'll probably end up being a little bit less. I figure Nelly Fox 59 All Stars worth doing. This is one we actually just talked about recently. John brought that up with Frank Robinson, cool cards, and he's like the 72 traded's pretty neat. So you don't see him in the Dodgers uniform, and I think I had it, but it was kind of like the Nelly Fox. And like for $5 and knowing I'll get it for less than $5, I'm like, let's take the risk. Here's a weird one. I can't believe I didn't have this. That's my first Dave Parker rookie. So now that he's a Hall of Famer, I gotta do it, right? Um, so those are pretty mainstream, nothing crazy. This card I like a lot. I like this for a couple reasons. One, it's 75 ERA leaders, which means it's 76, which means that's a Dennis Eckersley rookie leader card. Crazy weird, right? I also thought this was funny because the back is so miscut that you actually see like the top of the next card. It's brutally chopped, even though the front looks decent. So I think stuff like that's interesting sometimes. This one I've been doing Hall of Famer birthdays, and I don't have a card of his. So thought I would go ahead and snag that just to be sure. Um, if I do have one, it's only one. I definitely don't have much of some of those early players. So, um, next one. I don't think I had a Thurman Munson in action, so it'd be a third year, 1972 tops. I think the inaction's pretty gosh darn neat. So I like that. Thought that was clean enough. This one I don't think I had either. Sometimes I go in there with no want list. I just kind of see what's available, and if it's something I have duplicates of, I'll bring it to Strongsville and see if somebody else wants it for about the same price. But I figure Babe joins the Yankees, nice and clean, decent. I don't grade things. I mean, this is $4. I'm not going to grade that, but a decent copy. And I figure for $4. And the last one for my Cardinals fans, it's only my second Ken Boyer card. What's wrong with me? Um, you know, should he be a Hall of Famer? Probably. I don't know if that's cut properly to get a grade or if it's an A or an E. Who cares? It's $1. Um, they're blank back. There's nothing crazy to that. So buck. So if you add up the sticker price of all those, I think it's like 31.50. Um, took it up there. Maybe it's because he's got the big cards coming and he knows that I like the big cards. But he looked at him. He's like, nah, let's call it $20. Let's call it good. So $20 out the door. Um, However you want to do that. It's like 63% of sticker price. So my Ken Boyer went from being $1 to 63 cents, and all my $5 cards were down to 3 and change. So decent, cool cards. Nothing exotic, nothing crazy. Maybe next time will be exotic and crazy. We'll see what happens. And the last one I wanted to show you guys is it's a neat set. It's a little like promo set. It's a 1951. Um, Connie Mack released a book, My 66 Years in the Big Leagues. And I guess, if I'm understanding it right, these 4 cards were issued as like a promotion to it. So there's books you can get at different times. There's the All Star set. It's Connie Mack stuff. This is none of those. This is something a little bit different. And I wasn't really as familiar when I saw this pop up. It's really just kind of a player I check for every so often. And I guess just happened to log in the right week and check things. But yeah, I thought it was a really neat image. Not completely rare image, but a neat image. But the write up on the back I thought was cool. And then as I dug in, these are pretty tough. It's a 4 card set. So you get Connie Mack, you get Christy Mathewson, you get Babe Ruth, and then you get the one I picked up, which is Rube Waddell. Um, the Babe Ruth is the most graded. So again, trying to figure out like scarcities, populations, things like that. I always default. So whenever someone says like it's a pop three, I always go back to like my Mark Ubiza 87 Donruss. Like that's a pop four. Like nobody wants to grade it though. That's the reason it's a pop four. Go to Bo Jackson, go to Barry Bonds, go to somebody in 87 that people would actually grade um, and kind of care about and see what that goes to. So in this set, I mean, none of them are small names. They're all Hall of Famers. They're all amazing. But Babe Ruth's obviously the biggest name, right? So I think Rube Waddell has 20 some graded between, maybe it's only 20, maybe it's 20 even, I don't know, between PSA and SGC. Babe Ruth, the biggest name, the biggest dollars. The Babe Ruth one sells, I think, on PSA's website anywhere from 500 up to 5,000, depending on the condition. So it's not a small card. Between PSA and SGC, there's been roughly 35 graded of Babe Ruth. So that either tells me that there's more of those that survived, more of those created, or more of those people cared enough to grade. At 500 to 5,000, I'm assuming most in the collecting community would send it in and have it graded. The one I have purchased is not graded, which is, again, kind of cool. So I'll probably keep this one ungraded because there's no reason to. I don't really know what it will grade. Um, I kind of went into it knowing there was a little smudge on the back. Can't tell if that's ink or ketchup or blood. Maybe someone got into a fight over this card. I have no idea. Um, but small crease, but overall it presents really nicely. So let's stop talking about it and let's show this thing. So the image itself, I would say super cool, right? It's a really neat way to present. They're all kind of similar. They're all almost full body, like cutout type images of all 4 of them. Um, Player name stated at the bottom. What's neat is the back. Maybe I should name my channel like Back Collector. But if you just look at that, it tells the story of him playing in both leagues. Mr. Mack called him a carefree character with the mind of a child. There's a lot of discussion as to where he may have fallen on the mental capacity scale. I mean, it's almost crazy. I don't know if he would have been nurtured better in today's world, or if he would have been maybe set aside and not allowed to participate as he might have back then, um, had he been more closely understood. But I love the story. I'm going to hold this here for a second. So if anybody wants to actually, if you're driving, I drive and watch a lot of these things, come back and, hit pause and just read this thing. Once a Pittsburgh Brooklyn game was held up because the Pirates pitcher had disappeared. He found Rube playing marbles with youngsters under the stands. He strode back to the field, pitched a shutout, allowed but 3 hits, struck out 10 men, and not long after, he wandered away for good without bidding the Pirates goodbye. Like the stories of him, chasing fire trucks and playing with kids and wrestling alligators and like I mean the legend of Rube Waddell. If you don't know Rube Waddell, dive in. His cards are probably more iconic because of the character he was, and there's so many different unknowns about who he was, and it sounds like he had some vices, and um, I mean, you just don't know because of how long ago he played. But curious to learn more always about Rube Waddell, and just having that story documented on the back of a card is super neat. So these, if you're looking for that set, I think there's one of the other 3 all out there right now. They're all kind of big money on eBay. Put it in your search if you're curious. I don't know if I'd ever go after the other ones or not. I mean, infinite funds, of course I would, but given, the reality of making decisions, I am glad I got the Rube Waddell. Him and Connie Mack are probably the two on the lower end of the investment spectrum. Ruth is by far the biggest. So, dive in if you want to collect your Ruths. If you want to just pick one up from the set, they're really neat. But that's what I have for you. As I find out more from my local card shop, I will definitely share. Um, if you are connected with me, I'll do my best to, see things, identify things. And I don't know if it's going to be six more cards or 66 more cards. It's really no way of knowing. Last time was definitely dozens, but not hundreds. And it's the same person, so I'm not sure how much is really left in the collection. He just said it was some of the bigger stuff. So I know he'd mentioned Ruths. I know he mentioned Cobb's, and I imagine some Walter Johnsons, Matthewsons, whoever else would have been kind of in that strip card 20s era is probably going to be something that pops up. So if you need a strip card, shoot me an email. If you have my contact info, text me, reach out, call me, whatever works, and do my best to be your connection. Catch up with you all later. Have a good one.